Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is reply. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear reply used is to mean to say something in response to something someone else has said, right? So this is really common as we speak to one another. One person might state something or ask another a question, and another person will reply. A second way to use this verb is very similar to the first, but instead of speaking, this one's all about writing. So, our second definition is to write back to someone after one has received a message. For many years, this just meant letters and that type of communication. It changed or evolved to include emails, and so this is a common word you hear. Reply to this email, right? It's giving you an instruction. We also use this reply when we're talking about text messages. So any type of writing will apply to definition 2. A third way to use the verb reply is to mean to respond by doing a similar action or making a similar gesture. Sometimes, as I've read historical accounts that talked about battles or wars, this particular verb has been used as one side responds by shooting, bombing, etc., making that similar action after another side had previously attacked. You should know that reply is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing. To make the past tense and participle forms of this verb, though, we're going to need to change our y to an I and then add ed. The base verb reply, I, ends in a voiced vowel sound. So our past tense ending is just going to make a D sound. Replied, replied. We're not going to spend any time looking at phrasal verbs. Sometimes as you look at lists, you might see reply to, but that really just has the exact same meanings we've already talked about. So this could be a spoken response, it could be a written one, etc. So this will allow us instead to focus on using our verb of the day in a couple different tenses. Today we're going to talk about the imperative and the simple present. Let's start with the imperative. Some people might not recognize this description, so think about commands. What's unique about commands in English is that we don't have a stated subject. So as we practice all of our various tenses in the past, the present, and the future, we generally start with a subject and then move forward as we form our verb. But here in the imperative, we're just beginning the sentence with our verb and we're telling someone to do something. We're not saying they should or it's a good idea. We're telling them do this particular action. Now, we can always sort of soften these imperative statements. We could add please at the beginning of any of our sentences, or we could use please at the end. You don't need it in both spots, though. So an example of an imperative is this sentence: reply to this message by July 31st. This might be a line in an email or in a letter, and what it's telling us to do is you, the reader, so this could be you singular or you plural if it's addressed to many people, you need to respond in writing by this particular date. Now, if you want to make a negative imperative sentence, you're going to use do not and then the base verb. Here's another example. Don't reply when you are angry. Right? So here someone might see that someone is upset, and before they maybe send a text message or send an angry email, saying kind of like calm down, relax. This can be really a useful tip in your professional working life, or even in your personal relationships as well. You'll notice there are no questions in the imperatives. That's why you see that black box there. So now let's move on to the simple present. We use this verb tense to talk about our habits and routines. We also use it to discuss facts. And the thing to remember about the simple present is to pay attention to the subject. So in the affirmative, if our subject is I, you, we, or they, we just want to use the base verb. But if our subject is he, she, or it, then we need to add an S to our verb. And here, because we have a verb that ends in Y, we're actually going to add IES. We're dropping that Y again, IES. And you can see that in my first example. She never replies to me. Okay. This could be referencing spoken word. It could be referencing some form of writing. But you can see that IES, and that's because my subject is she, right? If my subject had been they never reply, REPLY, to me. Okay. Now, to make a negative simple present sentence, you want to use do not in the base verb. Again, if our subjects are I, you, we, or they. Or you'll use does not reply with the subjects he, she, or it. So notice in the negative, we're not using the IES form here of the verb, where it's always the base verb. And that's because we have the different forms, do not and does not. You can see this in our example here. They don't reply to emails after hours. So this might mean kind of after business hours. Some organizations have policies to encourage more of a balance for their employees to have a life outside of work so that they're not always on their phones responding to things. So here, their habit, their routine, or you can look at this also as a fact, you're not going to get a response at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, etc. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple present. To do this, you're going to start with do or does, whichever form matches the subject, and the subject comes next. Then we'll have our base verb. So, an example here, does he reply to your text, right? So maybe someone is complaining about not hearing from someone, maybe they haven't answered a call, so they could be encouraging, send a text, see if he'll reply to that. Again, kind of asking about someone's habit or routine. Now, if my subject had been you, right? Maybe do you reply to her text or his text, right? We could change our pronouns here a bit. But hopefully you can see, right? I'm switching my helping verb in these sentences to form questions to match my subject. Now, let's spend a minute looking at some words that are related to our verb reply. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of the word. So the noun reply can have a couple different meanings. One could be a verbal or written answer. Right? So an example, did you get a reply from customer service? This could be asking, did you get a call back? Did you get a letter in the mail? Did you get an email? It's not very clear what kind of reply, and that's okay. But essentially, did you get an answer, a response? A second way to use the noun reply is to mean the action of answering someone. So you might see this phrase used in emails or letters. I'm writing in reply to your letter dated June 1st, right? So this phrase kind of in reply is describing that action of responding or answering someone else. The next two things we're going to look at are some examples of how reply can sort of modify or describe other nouns. So something I imagine many people see in their mail quite often are reply envelopes. So this is a noun, and I've included a picture down here at the bottom of the screen. Just sometimes it's good to have that mental image. You've probably seen something that looks like this, right? It says business, reply, mail. The address is already provided for you. Sometimes there might be a little box right in the upper right hand corner that says no postage necessary if mailed within the United States. So it's saying that postage has already been paid for you. And that envelope is meant to help you respond to something. It could be responding to a bill, could be responding to some other notice, but this envelope has already been addressed. And it could have the postage paid. Not all of them do. But an example of this noun in a sentence, the reply envelope is on the table. Right? And it's meant to help you more quickly respond to things, so you don't have to look for an envelope, get the address right. The company or the organization knows the right information is there, and it may make it easier for you to pay on time, for example. Something else you might have heard of is a reply card. This is commonly used in connection to weddings and showers, possibly other parties or gatherings. But a reply card, again, it's used to mail some sort of response or reply. And this card is provided by the person who's asking you to respond. So, this noun in a sentence, an example of that could be, please return the reply card before August 15th. Well, I hope today's video helps you better understand the verb reply. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.